So, Davide, when I was talking to Danielle about the perfect first guest for this podcast, I thought of you. And I think you've went through the wars in your life and come out the other side and have a fascinating life. And yeah, I think that you encapsulate what we're trying to do with this podcast and reclaiming the faith, because you reclaimed your faith, and me and you met very serendipitously in Knock, which we can get to later on. But, you know, to start off, welcome.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Danielle,
Yes.
for having me. It's
You-
actually an honor to be here.
The honour is ours.
Yeah, thank you.
Really.
Thank you.
How's your health?
My health is great. Now
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always great.
Good. Good.
I'm like an old truck. You know what I mean? It takes a bit in the morning to start. When I start, I don't stop.
I know that. Me and you've talked the ears out of each other.
That's what he
Nice.
said to me actually on the way. He says, if someone can talk more than me, it's you. And I thought, no way anybody's going to beat him. But
Yeah. Like in my house, between myself and my wife, like, you know, she will be similar to me. So we fight, you know. Every so often I say, are you thirsty yet? No, you have to drink. Like, you know.
He's the Italian stallion.
Yeah, so like, you know, it's an honor to be here and help you for this
The honor is all ours.
beautiful cause that you have started, and as you know, to be the first guest. I actually thank God for saving my life to be here with you.
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. No, like, again, someone who fits this podcast and where they come from. We thought of you. I thought of you. Danielle said, yes, let's do it. It's great. I mean, it's an honor to have you.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about your life. Tell us where you come from.
Yeah, look, like I was born on the 1st of November 1971, so that's All Saint Day in a small village in northwest Italy. That's just below Switzerland on the side of France. The big city close to my village will be Turin. Juventus Football Club or the Fiat car, you know, that's where I come from. To a small family, it's just my mom and my dad. I was the first grandson in the family. I had a lot of uncles and aunts. My father was number 14, so a lot of uncles and aunts. But one thing I grew up, I don't remember too much about my childhood. I've been told by my uncles and aunts in later in life, you know. But there was no love in my family, you know. I never witnessed love between my mom and dad. In example, I never saw my father hugging my mother or kissing my mother, or kindness or gentleness. We're like two strangers living together and bringing up this child. And definitely some of that has affected me in some way. You know, maybe at that age when I was young, I wasn't able to process it and why, you know what I mean? But definitely in older age, you know, I can think many reasons why that was, why what I became, that was the start. The lack of love in the family network. In 73, my brother was born as well, so there was two of us only in the family, two lads. So I grew up in a classic normal family. My mother was a home house. You know, she never worked in her life. She was a princess. Like, you know, she was brought up very, very kindly by her own father. She was the pearl of my grandfather's eyes, and so she never worked. So my father was breaking his back, trying to make ends meet every month, and we had a good privilege brought up, I have to say. Nothing was lacking in our life. But at the age of 6 and 7, the relationship between my parents started to change, and probably because we start to go to school, and I am no great academic. I'm a very smart person, but no academic. And the few troubles that were happening at school or in the courtyards or on the streets of my village, like, you know what I mean? I was rough and ready. I was angry. So I was brought up by two lunatics that were beating the daylight out of us on a daily basis, you know? My mother was self-diagnosed herself as manic depression. But then was confirmed by doctors, and so she was in heavy medication all her life. Since I remember, since I can have a memory, my mother was taking tablets. Like, you know, my father was a recovering alcoholic. He stopped drinking a year before he got married because he put a fella in a wheelchair in a car accident, and that struck his life so much that he decided to stop drinking. But he was a dry drunk. You never find the joy of the sobriety. So what can I say? My head was broken. My ribs are broken. My two teeth were knocked down by punches. This arm was broken half because my mother was with a shovel, was beating me with a shovel. So he cracked me arm, and I was always brought to a hospital, you know. And funny enough, I was always told to lie, you know. And so my mother would say to me, when the doctor will ask you, telling me you fell from the stair, telling me you fell from the bike, you know what I mean, it was an accident, da-da-da. But you know, when you grow up in a small village, the hospital is the same. You're brought in every few months with a broken something. It's like, you know, the doctor are not stupid.
Yeah.
And so I was lying to cover up what was going on in the house. But I was lying as well with my friends. I couldn't think, and you know, to sell my parents that they were dreadful. You know what I mean? So I put a big mask on of this happy family, joyful family. Nothing was lacking to us, but definitely the blood was boiling inside. The anger was rising. So when I was 11, 12, I started playing soccer. I was quite good. But I also was introduced to hash, and I liked that, and cans. So I started drinking. And I found that, you know, it was okay. It was acceptable. My mother knew, and she didn't care, and she never said nothing. Like, you know, at the beginning, she had some concern, definitely, but she wasn't really too worry about it. So I started dealing, and I started to play soccer to let the anger out, and I was quite good. So by the age of 14, I played professional soccer for a year in the local team. I was paying money to play soccer, but at the age of 14 as well, heroin entered in my life through a group of old friends, because I was selling a lot of hash, and some people have no money to pay for the hash, so they gave me heroin in exchange, and I tried it, and I tell you, I got hooked immediately. It wasn't by snorting it or smoking, I was injecting it. So my life took a very, very strange direction that I remember even playing soccer, and I could have, you know, I could have a career. I can't say it today, but if I stuck what I was good at, maybe I could be rich and famous. Maybe I could have, you know, be injured and stop. But I remember the doctor playing professional, so you couldn't hide the marks in your arms. So the winter was great because the jersey had the long sleeves, but in the summer you have to wear short sleeves. So I remember the doctor once, you know, the doctor of the football team asked me, he knew. He wasn't, he's a doctor. So he said to me, you have to make a choice, you know. It's football or whatever you're doing. So I give up the football and I completely focus myself on the drugs. And that's what really became the only things I knew until I was 24. So it brought me in very, very dark places. I have to say, I own it. It's my past. I don't think that had to pay big price for it, spiritually, and mentally, to accept. But one thing I have to say, I always said it wasn't my fault. It was someone else's fault. So it was my parents' fault because I became what I became. So I don't know, you know what I mean? Like at the age of 14, selling hash, taking heroin. Maybe heroin was only weekend at that stage, you know? Mm-hmm. And
can I ask you, how did hash to heroin is a big jump? How did that happen? Or maybe in Italy it's different, I don't know, at the time.
No, you're right, John, it's a big jump. But late 80s and the beginning of 90s, Italy was a plague with heroin. Everybody was addicted to heroin. There was heroin everywhere. You could buy a bag of heroin in a village of 500 people. Like, you know, there was someone addicted, someone that had it. You know
That's
what I mean?
Surprising to me because we'd have that kind of tourism, you know, image of Italy and spaghetti bolognese and wine and chilled out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think heroin, actually, wouldn't I? When I think heroin, I think Dublin City, I think Glasgow, I think Prague, I don't think Italy.
Yeah. You know, you think now.
Yeah.
In the 80s was completely different. Like, so we came from an area of the 70s when the rock, when the hippies, like, you know what I mean? So from the grass to the heroin was a very, very big jump, a very short jump. But when it was available and it was so cheap, you could do a weekend with a $5. So it was so normal for everyone to use it. So I lost 50 of my... I come from a village of 10,000 souls. So, like, you know what I mean? It was a huge group of friends. Like, you know, 50 of my friends are now here to tell their story. Like, you know what I mean?
And they all die through drug usage or...
Yeah. Some die of overdose, you know, some dies of criminality, some dies of falling asleep at the wheel and crashing themselves, like, you know, but also drinking, you know, drinking was a very heavy culture in Italy for young people, like, you know what I mean? So, so that was my jump, like, you know, and dealing, making money, no need to work, making loads amount of money. So by the age of 16, I trained, I went to professional school. My uncle took me a little bit on his side. So from 14 to 16 was like, you know, just hanging around, selling drugs and making a life, you know what I mean? Just messing. But my uncle took my godfather took a little bit of, we say, shoulder me, you know, under his wings, and he sent me to this professional course, and I became a cook. And then he got me a job, you know, and where was the job? In Amsterdam. And so, by the age of 16 and a half, I went to Amsterdam to work for these Italian friends of my uncle restaurant. So my heroin addiction in Amsterdam went just skyrocket. They were paying good money. You work very hard. You're always in the kitchen 7 days a week. Like, you know what I mean? So the whole money that I was making, I was buying heroin. So I lived in Amsterdam for a year and a half. So that's the only place where I saw Chinese homeless. I never see Chinese homeless. It's the only place.
We're just on the heroin addiction.
Yes.
And your background, where you come from.
Yes.
And what happened to you. You are the kind of people who end up on heroin, it seems like, because it seems the people I grew up around, they looked for heroin to numb their pain. So what was that relationship like with heroin in terms of your trauma and what you went through?
Yeah, it was self-medication. Like, you know, it was completely pressing down issues, lies, the lack of love from your parents.
I'm curious, sorry, as well, when you say the lack of love, so when you were growing up in your home, was there any faith at all? Did you have any religion?
My father, you know, if he's still alive today, rest in peace. He died in 2019 for cancer, but he will say he was a Catholic, but he was voting for the Communist Party. So I don't know how Catholic he was that. You know, my father never went to church.
Okay.
Never received the Eucharist.
Culturally Catholic, like a lot of Catholics in Ireland now.
Yes,
yeah,
correct. That will be. My mother, when I was young, she was Catholic. She was attending Mass, we're saying Sunday. She was doing a bit of catechism. But I think her manic depression brought her to New Age. Like, so she became a Buddhist. She was dealing with New Age stuff and things like that. But only today I can speak about that. At the time, I didn't know anything about that. That was bad, that I shouldn't have done it, like, you know. So the lack of love, I can only tell you this. I left home. I was 15. I left my parents. So I was living with my parents until I was 15. I never had a birthday celebration. So my parents never celebrate my birthday. I never had people around the house, a cake or stuff like that, you know. So if that can explain the lack of love. And so my mother, when she was very bad, she used to say to me at the table, or even my father used to say to my mother used to say, I should have aborted you. Oh. You're only a pain. You know, you're only a pain. You're only creating troubles. And my father used to say as well, I should have bought 2 rabbits instead of 2 sons. At least I can kill the rabbits and eat them. And instead, you know, so that was the kind of environment I grew up. My grannies, my grandfather, my aunt and uncles all knew what was going on in our home.
Well, do you know anything about your mother and father's parents and maybe what they went through? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, my grandfather from my mom's side was an alcoholic, and he died on a motorbike accident, drunk like a skunk. My granny, she saved my life. And we might go in there after. You know what? I say she was a very faithful Catholic. So daily mass, rosary, visiting the sick, going to the cemetery, praying for the holy souls. That was her day. And caring for an alcoholic husband and bringing up two girls.
What a woman.
Yeah.
The other side of my family, my granny and granddad, from my father's side, my grandmother was obese, very heavy woman, and she never left home.
Too much spaghetti.
Oh, telling you, she loved the food. Yeah, no bother, no problem there. We used to call her the general. She was the general. Nobody will cross granny.
Really?
Oh, nobody will
The
cross.
matriarch.
The matriarch, yes. And I felt sorry for my uncle, my grandfather, Luigi was his name, and he was a beautiful soul, and he was never in the home. And I understand why. He was never in the home. He was like hell. But everybody respected my granny, you know what I mean? Even us. And she loved me very much. And both my grannies loved me very much. I didn't spend too much time with the father of my mother because he died. But I spent a lot of time. So I nursed in Heroin. I nursed my grandfather when he had a stroke and then he died. So because I was the only junkie and doing nothing all day, I was asked to stay on the bedside and look after a granddad.
Just when you say that as well, like what does a day in a life look like for someone who's on heroin?
What the life look like? Yeah, at the beginning, it's great. The beginning is great. You know what I mean? Heroin will lead your life, nothing else. So the first thought that when you wake up in the morning is, where is the bag? And you couldn't care who is around you. You will do anything to get that bag. And then the day will go to get more bags, more bags, more bags. So you're completely detached from reality. You're completely detached with what's going on in your life. That powder is leading your life. It's like the devil puts strings on you and he uses it like a puppet. And you do anything you feel that is right for you to get that bag. But going back to that, you know what I mean? I was smart as well. And when I came back from Amsterdam, because I met some people from South Italy, and I spent time in South Italy, when I was young, because I had friends from the village, so I used to go for the summer down to escape my own parents. I met some people over there in Amsterdam, and I used to buy from them. And then when I decided to leave Amsterdam, I came home. And I thought it was a great opportunity that something could happen. And because the local family was from South Italy, and I knew who they were, and you know what I mean, they were serious criminals, but it wasn't about drugs at the time. It was about lending money, construction, and robbery and stuff like that, So I remember one night being in my local pub, having a chat with the owner, and he's old, I felt like a father figure to me. He loved me for some reason that I cannot explain. So when the pub closed, we just stayed behind with a few beers, and I said to him, would you like me to introduce your son to some people that you can make huge amount of money, and I will help you? And he was interested. So I brought the two sons up in Amsterdam to meet these people. And they're all from the same villages, neighboring villages from South Italy. And we made a connection. So I started to bring down a kilo of Brown and a kilo of Charlie every month at the beginning for this family. So money was flying everywhere. I had money everywhere. I didn't know where to put them. But then, you know what I mean? The situation became, we made everybody addicted. And that's something that I cannot, I forgive myself today.
So I was going to ask.
Can I take it back a little bit?
Yeah.
You looked after your grandfather.
Yes.
On heroin.
Yes.
What was that look like? Just to go back to what she said, like the daily life of a heroin addict, but the daily life of a heroin addict, looking after your dying grandfather.
But when you have heroin in your pocket, you can live a functional life.
Yeah.
Nobody cares, and you don't care, because you'll be all right inside yourself. You're completely detached. You don't care about anybody until, it's in there. It's in your pocket. Your needles is in your socks.
What age were you when you were looking after him?
It was 18.
You were 18?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then at this stage, I was dealing a lot of drugs.
Oh, you were already dealing by then? Wow.
My God, yeah.
What age was that you came back from Amsterdam?
So I went 16 and a half, and we started the dealings, just before I was, maybe 6 months before I was in my 18th birthday. So in the summer, we brought
So
them on.
16, you went really deep into it as
Oh,
well.
yeah,
in
yeah.
Amsterdam.
Using. Yeah.
Really deep into it.
And then, when I came back from Amsterdam, because I had a bit of money, I made money as well cooking, but, I used a lot of heroin, and not even cocaine at the time, just heroin, just to survive as a young kid. Just, heroin gave me this sense of power, a power that, and I could calm down the voices inside, the aggression, the anger, because I want to kill everyone. Like, if someone cross my footpath, I'll kill him. Like, you know what I mean? It was just this kind of numbing who was inside of me that I know now who he was, but so I came back from Amsterdam 6 months before I was 18. I took these two lads up to Amsterdam. We made the deal and we started. So I used to go with a fella with a, I used to bring a fella with he was clean. He never touched drugs. He had an accident and he had a wooden leg, like prosthetic. So I used to bring him with me, and he will travel in one first class train, from Turin to Amsterdam. He will travel in first class. I'll travel somewhere else in second class. Like, couldn't care less, And I buy him clothes, make him all lovely, because he's quite poor, and he had no job. And so I make him a proposition, and I knew I could trust him. So I just said, I just need your leg, and I'll give you I'll put you up in 5-star hotel, few prostitutes and stuff like that. You have a good time, you know what I mean? So he agreed. So I used him.
Transactional then?
Transaction. Yeah.
So again, Italy, gangs, crime, the first thing you think is The Godfather, or I would think about Italy specifically, Gomorrah, the TV show, which was originally a film that I loved.
Yeah.
And I loved the TV show as well. How accurate is that show, that world, that film? What's it like? I'm assuming there's still a more kind of tribal sense in place. Some places in Italy.
Yes. There's places like, there's families.
Yeah.
Okay, there's family. The family divide the territory. So the territory is divided by family from South Italy. Okay? And normally they're not from North Italy. They have all the power.
And why is that?
Because they emigrated. And because North Italy was very rich, with the factory, with the industry. So people had money. But also because there was no work in the South. They came up, as migrants up to the North. And when they settled in, there was an opportunity. Everything is an opportunity. You know what I mean? The drug trade is a huge amount of money, but it's also very risky business to go into it. But in those years, in the 60s, in the 70s, all those South Italian family from Sicily and Calabria, okay, this is the two region, and they split the territory. So it was an open market. So what you see in Gomorrah, maybe, there's too many murder. There was no many murder. Like, you get good beaten up and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But in Italy, you die for a debt of 100 quid. In those years, if you owe someone 100 quid, they shoot you. God. If you own 10 grand, it's different. We can work it out. I need to get the 10 grand back.
Yeah, God.
100 euro?
Yeah, right. Oh, God.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's so sad. But that's the way that the dealing happened. So when 1K and 1K was coming a month, we just got everybody addicted. So you have trusty people that you know that they will not sell you to the police to sell for you. You don't sell. You know what I mean? I say I was selling, but I wasn't on the squares. So there are squares, there are areas. So you set up your sellers and they sell. So it's like a job. It's like a 9 to 5. You know what I mean? And they take shift. They change, and the corruption is very easy as well. Like, if you have money, you can pay for everything to quiet down. People close their eyes.
What was Davide like then, in terms of the Davide without religion, without faith, without the love of our Lord and the Spirit in you, and what you're doing now, which we'll get to eventually.
Yeah.
We'll take our time. But what were you like without the Lord on your side, without that clarity, without that faith? What was your mentality like and your impulsiveness?
I was a very, very dangerous person. Yeah, I used to travel. My car was a Fiat Uno Turbo, modified. It was very fast. I used to have a bottle of Jack Daniels where the gear stick is and a gun in my back all the time to protect myself. Because like a lot of people knew that I was making this family a lot of money. And if they get me out, the next family could set up themselves. So, but they never, I've been shot by the police, not by the gangsters, like, you know what I mean? But I've been shot a few times, like, because I didn't stop to checkpoints and stuff like that. I just drove through and in Italy, they don't chase you, they just shoot you. But there was the Davide, and very easy manipulator of people to make them work for you. So I get someone hooked. He needs me, but I need more him than he needs me. So you just feed those people. Like you're going feeding cows in the morning or animals. You just feed them and they do anything you ask them.
What were you getting out of it outside of the money, and
Power.
the power?
Power.
So obviously this linked to your childhood and that lack of power.
Yeah, power. When you enter in a place, like, people knows who you are, so like I could bring you back, John. When we started, it was 1-1. When I'm finished, it was like 50-50, and I have to come up with different ways, like to bring it in. So
50 what keys?
50K, yeah,
Oh.
yeah, a week.
50 keys.
Yeah, a week, no a month, a week. So that from 1K and 1K a month, it became 1K every 2 weeks, then 1K every week. And then it just went pear-shaped because what happened, we got our village all addicted. And then people from other villages were coming to us. So I just say, why they're coming to us? They make too much fuss. We make too much trouble. So we set up over there. So like in the radius of maybe 50 kilometers of our village, we cover everyone. So the demand was so high that you have to.
But what was the knock-on effect from that? Like being such a society then that was involved with drugs so much, was like morals, was everything out the window? Like what did society look like there? Was it like just crime?
Oh yeah. It's, you lose. I lost all morals. I couldn't care less. Like, you know what I mean? In the sense, like, you don't have that sensitive or sensibility about drama. You don't care. And you just say, sure, they're not smart. Like, you know what I mean? Look where I come from. Look what I'm doing with my life. Yeah. Thinking I was right.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you need to protect yourself. And you protect yourself by getting lads to come around with you and to protect you. So everywhere you go, there's an area you don't go. You don't cross boundaries. You can't sell, or you can even go to the nightclub or to the pub of certain areas. So you don't, but everybody collaborate. And so the reality was, the first was a van. You get a fellow with a van, clean guy. You just pay a huge amount of money. He'll do the runs. And then by that time, I got a farmer. He was a crazy fella. He was so mad for the Charlie that I say to him, what's actually your job? And he says, I'll buy cows up in Germany, Holland, Belgium. And I say, oh, that's great. And I say, how do you bring the cows in from there? And he say, we go up with the trucks. We purchase the cow, we bring it down, they stay in our farm, and then we sell them. And say, we make a huge amount of money. I say, oh, that's great. I say, it's grand. I say, will you help me? And he said, what do you mean? I say, can we stuff drugs into your cows when you bring it down?
God.
So that's the way we used to bring it.
No way.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
So you invented a new way of doing it.
Over in Holland, they will cut the cows in a way to don't hurt them, put the packs into it. And you remember, we are talking about the early 90s, mid-90s. There was no mobile phone. There was no CCTV camera. There was no all the security there was there right now. You know what I mean? And money opened all the doors.
Was there, in that point in your life, we talk about God incidences.
Yeah.
Was there any little breadcrumbs, little seeds along the way, or anything coming into your life that might have planted something? I say
this many times, when I have an opportunity to speak about my life. I've been in situation, serious situation. They say, will I get out of this now? Do you know what I mean? Or a meeting or something like, what's going on? And I never pray to the man below. I always pray to the man above. And even my friends, like, I bring you a little bit fast forward. When I end up homeless, like, we were doing post office, banks and stuff like that. We're sitting outside the bank. your heart will be racing. And you say, you make the sign of the cross. And you say, please, guide, make sure that we'll make it. It's tough, mental.
Yeah.
But God was on our lips, one way or another. The breadcrumbs came when I decided to get out of that. I got out because I think it was my time to get out. Otherwise, I was gonna be taken out. Not by the drugs, by someone else. But to arrive to that moment, as you say, God crumbs. I remember I was in a pub in a village just outside Turin, and this lovely lady came in, and she had a daughter. And I talk to anyone like I'm talking to you, and I was the same, like that. When I was high, I will talk to anyone. When I was dealing, I wouldn't have any friends. Like that's also one thing I forgot to say. That life, my childhood, silence, and also keep a low profile. Do you know what I mean? No be the grandiose. Never drive a Mercedes on the square because there will be, just the Guardia Cioccolana in Italy. You have the police, the Carabinieri, the Guardia di Finanza, the local police, like, you know what I mean? They come for you. You know what I mean? They just wait for those moments. But I met this girl and we were chatting and she understood where I was quite in bits. They had drugs problems. So she really took pity on me. And she says, I really would like to see you again, maybe during the day, would you like to go for an ice cream, she says, So I said, yeah, I'd love to see you. But in my head was, she nice looking, I get something out of it, That's the way a man think. And to be honest, I don't think about anything else. So I went down this afternoon, maybe a couple of days after we met in this playground. And she bought the ice cream and we were chatting. And I was off my head. And she was talking to me about a rehabilitation center. I just said, I don't care about rehabilitation center. I don't need a rehabilitation. I'm fine. But my eyes couldn't stop looking at that girl, the child, going on the swings, throwing their legs up and smiling, and then coming off the swings, going up the slides. And, something inside says to me, I love that freedom. Do you know what I mean? Something that I never had. I love to be like her. But, you know what I mean? I didn't change my life immediately after that. But that's a little bit of light coming through a little child. That I never, I met with a mommy and with an ice cream. And I never saw that woman again. I decided to don't. Because he actually broke me. The child broke me in a certain way. And so when she tried to go out for a pizza or something, I said, no, I'm too busy. But, like breadcrumbs in the darkness, no. Honestly, no.
So was it like you had to hit a rock bottom before was there a rock bottom?
Oh, there was, yeah.
What
was
did
a
it
rock
look
bottom.
like?
Yeah.
Death. That's the rock bottom. There's no other rock bottom. It's death. Breadcrumbs, like my grandfather passed away and I went to the funeral. So this is how much the devil and heroin and drugs can bring a person to do things, So I went to the funeral of my grandfather and we went back. So here in Ireland, they go to the pub. In Italy, it's very serious for like maybe 10 days. You have to be there. Dark, no television, no radio, no music. Like I have to mourn, really seriously. Strange. But anyway, we went back from the funeral. We went back to my granny house, and she bought a beautiful coat with, it's a beautiful coat with hairy stuff here. I don't know if it was an animal or whatever. And so the house is full of people. Okay, this is my grandmother prayed the rosary, and she says to me, will you put the jacket that I bought back in my wardrobe? I say, of course, Nana. You get it off. Get it off. And I went to the wardrobe. I opened the wardrobe. I grabbed one of the crutches. I put the jacket. I stick the crutches like that. Then when I put it like that, I move a little bit the other jackets. And I straighten up. I was doing a lovely job for Granny.
Yeah.
But when I did that, on the first go, me eyes hit one of those woman purse, very shiny. Normal person where I've closed the door, go back. You know what I mean? I pick up I pick up the bag. I open the bag. There was 10 grand in it. That was my grandfather's funeral money. So I took 300 quid and I put it in my pocket. And I closed the bag and I put it there. I closed the door. But before I exit the room, a voice in my head says, 300, you're going to get blamed for 300. Take it all. So I went back, I took it all. Then I excused myself that I was going to buy cigarettes. They left. My grandmother, she died, was 104. She died in 2020. She forgave me for that. She remembered. She knew it was me. She never held a grudge over that. And why did I do it as well? Because I knew my father had money to give it to her. So the cockiness as well. Not just hurting my grandmother, but also to know, sure, they look after themselves. My father will look after that. So I have to say, there's no much God in my life, honestly, in those years. Outside and praying for him that you don't get shot or your shipment comes in and everything, or a robbery will go well. You know what I mean? So if that's what you're looking for, no. It was only power, more money, and more way to go off your heads and stuff like that.
How was your physical health during these years?
It was great. Like, I couldn't be. I did. Maybe I was sick. I don't know. But you're so self-medicated, like with all those stuff. My health was great. I have to say, I'm a great worker. Wherever you put me, I'll do. Like I put my head down and I find a way to get out of anything. But and to make something out of nothing. Mm-hmm. And but the beauty was like, I paid the price, to do a treatment.
Yeah.
And I say, I was off my head. I'm no interest.
So you just never went back?
No. And when I had my conversion, I had a word with God. So I might tell you later. But that's no, I never went back. No. Wow. And I lost my kidney as well. Like,
What age were you in 1990?
1971, so
19.
Yeah,
19 years of age.
And you know what? It wasn't because drugs or stuff like that. It was because my mother wasn't a great example of the relationship.
Yeah,
I wasn't very promiscuous. So even as well, I would say Our Lady had covered me with a mantle because drugs was everything for me. Was a woman, was joy, was everything. So I wasn't really, but I had few girlfriends, and one of those girlfriends gave me this beautiful gift. The treatment is Jesus.
Yeah. So just to go back a bit then, so when was it that Jesus, I suppose, when was it that you went from the darkness into the light? When did you find your faith?
The darkness to the light. The first darkness to the light was that child. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the opening. Okay. So from that moment, I stopped seeing this girl, but I went back to the head of the family and I said to him, I'm done. And he says to me, what do you mean? I said, I can't do this life anymore. I can't live. I had 5 passports with the same picture, 5 different names, 5 different addresses. I had cars parked in different locations in the city of Turin, just for easy going, easy escape. Like my life was too fast. I couldn't catch up with the life I used to have. I had enough. And I want that freedom. But I didn't know how to get it, where to get it. But I knew deep inside, if I get out of this fast life, I might find something. So he says, we had to have a serious conversation, a lot of money to be exchanged. So I left with nothing. I gave everything to this family. And for a year, I was afraid I was going to get clipped. For a year, 12 months. And after the year went by, I say, okay, I'm grand.
Where did you go in that year?
I became homeless because I lost everything.
Where were you homeless?
In the train station in Turin, yeah. From when I was nearly 21 until 24. So for 3 years, I lived in a train station with my sleeping bag, my fox terrier, Duffy. She was pest. She was a great defender of me when I was at night. She will wake me up and stuff like that. But I was among a family. There was hundreds of us, of heroin addict, junkies, winos, homeless by choice. But definitely life became really more serious. When I left, all that money, all that power, I had an addiction of a grand a day of coke and heroin, 1,000 euro a day. So from going from there to nothing. And you know what? When you come out, you can go to other that you know and beg or lend or ask on what do you call it, on credit. Like, you know what I mean? When you stop, you stop. Everybody close the doors to you. So you buy from the streets buyers. Like, you know, like I used to give it to the street buyers. Now I am the buyer from them. So like it was very hard. So my life was criminality 100%. Like, you know what I mean? Just robbery one after the other. Like, you know, so I got arrested and everything. Like, you know what I mean? But that was 3 years. So no eating. So when I became, I say between 23 and 24, the last 6 months. So from January to August, so 9 months of my birth. When I was 24, I was 50 kilos. So my legs were the size of my wrist, skin and bones. My hair were long like yours.
Less
long
than 8
beard,
stone.
filthy, dirty. Like I never washed my clothes in the past. I used to just go in shops and buy clothes, wear it for 2 days, then throw it into a bag and give it to charity and buy more clothes because the money was like a well. It was keep coming up, and you have to spend it. I bought car. I went to the dealer with a bag like from the shop full of cash, and I said, I buy the car. And he said, you can do that. He said, do you want the money, or I go to the next door? And you know what I mean? So going from having everything, the power and everything, you become the last. So you be sitting there, people walk by you and despise you and disgust you, and you know, and they're right. They're right, because if I had a chance, I grab their bags. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're right. So we say from January to August, when I was 24, August 24, 1996, I had my conversion. I decided to stop. I attempted suicide 5 times. So that because I had enough. I was so tired. The world said it to me through over the 3 years living in the street. A lot of psychologists, a lot of people will come. You go everywhere to find, you know what I mean, a way out. So a lot of people said I had no hope. My parents never looked for me. They completely forgot about me. So I grew up on my own, put it that way. And so I attended, and I wasn't very good. And maybe God had different plans for me. But the last attempt suicide was in the beginning of August, and I had like a big bag of heroin, and I had medication. I took everything, and I remember I was sitting into a park, and completely tired, and I was just praying to the Lord. I don't want to wake up. You know what I mean? Not the last force. I don't want to wake up. Please take me. And sitting in that bench was like 9 o'clock in the morning. There was a granddad with his grandson playing. And I just took off my jacket, roll up my sleeves, prepare my heroin in front of everyone. And I just injected myself. When the grandfather saw that, he took the grandchild and ran away. And the last thing I saw before I passed out was 2 policemen on a horse coming down to me.
No way.
But then I passed out. So I was in hospital, piped up for a week, dead, piped up everywhere. And I just woke up. And I started pulling everything out and pulling my catheter out. Like, you know, I hurt myself. I was screaming as I was, not again. No, you know what I mean? Why again? No, why am I awake again? And the nurse came in. I was in ICU. Like, you know, there was a tent, there was gas, people dying, serious people with serious diseases dying around me. And I'm there screaming, I want to leave. He said, you can't leave. You were dead for a week. Like, you know what I mean? And the long story, I said, no, I want to leave. And so the doctor, the consultant, says, you have to see the consultant. You can't go. Yeah. So I went to the consultant. The consultant called me by my first name. Okay. And it was a long time I didn't hear someone call me by my first name, honestly, outside of the police. But the consultant called me by my first name, and that really touched my heart. And he says to me, do you know that this is the 5th time that you are living in this area, and this is the only hospital, the bigger hospital, you've been brought here. We brought you back 5 times, and as he says, you know that the man below, the devil, doesn't want you yet, and the man above, God, doesn't want you yet. So there is something that you have to do in this life, because before you go up or down, he said to me. And you know what? I left, he made me sign some paper, and I left the hospital. I went back to my train station. I found my sleeping bags. I used, and then I went to sleep. But that night at 4 o'clock, I woke up, and this strong desire. Sorry, I'm missing one very important thing. Sorry. I come back to the train station. I used, and on Monday night, this is very important. This is God. This is where God come into my life. This man, Peter, little man, that height, used to come every Monday night to the corner of the train station and bring sandwiches and tea to the homeless and junkies, like us, the homeless. So for 3 years, I ate Peter sandwiches many Mondays and drank his tea or coffee or whatever he brings. I never saw Peter. That night, I saw Peter. And he welcomed me, like he welcomed everybody. And he said, how are you, my son? And I'm looking at him and I say, just out of the hospital, nearly dead, He says, do you know that God loves you so much? And I say, sure, I don't know about that, but yeah. And he said, if you want to change your life, there is a place you can go for free, and they will help you to change your life. And I say, all right, yeah. And he gave me a card, a business card of this Catholic conservative community that was open in North Italy. I put it in my jacket, and make it long story short, I went to bed. I woke up at 4, and I decided I'm going home. And it was a long time I wasn't home. And I took the train, I arrived home, and I rang the bell of down the streets. And normally there is like a, what do you call it? Someone will come and say, who is there? And when nobody answered, it's just the door open. So I went in, and I arrived to the threshold of my house. My mother opened the door, and she looked at me and she said, what you want? That was her welcoming word, what you want. And I said to her, I don't know what I want, Mom. I just don't want to die in a train station. I think I came to die home. And she said, there is no way you walk that threshold and come and die in my house, unless you promise me now that you go to this community. And she mentioned the name of the community that I had the business card in my pocket. Peter and my mother never met. They never knew each other. And at that stage, I said to my mother, okay, I'll go. And I walked in. So she said, how are you? And I said, I'm all right now, but I'll be in serious trouble in a few hours. Ash, we'll deal with that. So she gave me some food. She said, go and have a shower. You look filthy. And then hit the bed. And so I did. And my father came home. He was out. And I hear a big drill going on. And I woke up. And I said, what's going on? So my father made a hole in the door and a hole in the wall. And he put a big chain. And he chained me into the room with the lock pad outside that I can reach it. And then he went on the balcony, because I had a balcony as well, and he chained the shutters. So I couldn't get out. So they kept me there. And I started to go in cold turkey, and it wasn't easy. Like, people that don't believe in the devil and demons, they have to go in cold turkey, and they will see them, they're real. And then, but anyway, at midnight, I was sick, bending, stuff coming out from everywhere. I hear the door knocking, and just a piece of paper came under the door, and the guy outside says, I'm the night medical, I know your family. They told me what's going on with you. He says, just take those tablets and get back in the bed, you'll be all right. So I said, okay. I took the tablets, went to bed. fell asleep. I don't know what they gave me, like, probably morphine or whatever, like, which I just collapsed in the bed. So that was me coming home. And by that stage, it took 3 days. And I was in that center. I entered the center in North Italy. And I spent 5 years there. And I changed my life. I encountered the Lord first, among the smile and the joy of many other brothers and sisters that have gone through what I went through, and they found a way out through Catholic faith. And I felt I belonged there. I felt that when I was a young kid, I used to be an altar boy, I went to church and stuff like that. Everything made sense. Everything came back to me. It wasn't easy, you know what I mean? You're carrying a bag of dirt with you, like, So the first 6 months were the toughest. Every day I want to leave. Every day I pack my bag and I want to go. But because this community had a chapel with the Blessed Sacrament, you were asked to go and spend time in front of the Blessed Sacrament when you have in a crisis. So I used to go often to have a crisis in front of this Blessed Sacrament. And I didn't know, honestly, I speak honestly right now, I've been looking at the tabernacle at this host, and I just say, I don't know if you're there, if you're not there, but I just have enough. I want to go. And this voice, after maybe 3 or 4 months, this voice used to come back to me and say, and where are you going? And inside your head, you start to think, I'm fine now, you know what I mean? 3 months, I've been working hard, I've been eating right, I can get a job, I find a girlfriend. And this voice was laughing at me. He said, you just want to go back to the heroin. And that was the truth. And until you admit the truth to yourself, nobody can make you come to that awareness. So I stuck it for 5 years, and I actually really, really enjoy it. And it wasn't easy. My confession lasted 3 years with the same priest, the poor chap. Even my confession, 3 years. He will not give me full absolution. He will give me absolution. He said, come back next week, and we'll go on a little bit more.
Oh, wow.
And I left. You see, it's like when you discover that there is a power stronger than yourself that can restore you to sanity. So the sanity came back into my head. And living a life of simplicity and love and caring for each other without expecting nothing back. So that gave me a different perspective of the Catholic Church and about what I want to do in life. And because I never had fear growing up in traumatic family environment, being traumatic drug dealings, gangster and stuff like that, and hurting a lot of people. So fear. So fear as well when you're in the good side. No fear to explore, no fear to go deeper, no fear to let's see your weakness. And from everyone. So I remember 6 months, 7 months in community one night. So the way this community work is hard work.
Are you allowed to say the name of it?
Yeah, Cenacolo. It's a cenacle. It's the cenacle. The upper room where the Lord had the Last Supper. And it's centered all over the world. And it's free. Doesn't cost any money. But you have to follow the rules. And the rules are Roman Catholic conservative rules. But anyway, they ask you to, you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, you pray a rosary, and then you go for breakfast, and then you go to work. And normally you grow up in farm. You are in farms, so you work hard. There's no machinery. You work hard with your shovel. So at the end of the day, that's where I found the joy of working. To use your hands, to be creative. I work in a farm in Tuscany for 1.5 years, and I used to plant tomatoes, 150,000 plants of tomatoes. So when they ripe, it's like a Red Sea, But you remember the day that you were there putting that seed, the little plant, and today you're reaching the fruits. The fruits are sold to make tomato sauce, and the money that will come from the tomato sauce will go to the mission in Brazil, in Mexico, to help children in the streets.
Amazing.
So everything makes sense.
So that good work and good faith you're putting in is coming right back.
And 3 rosary a day.
Come here, just on the rosary, right?
Yeah.
So just talk to me about the power of the rosary.
I'm not the right person to speak to you about the power of the rosary because I have a very, very, very difficult relationship with Our Lady because probably still have wounds from my mother. And so, and I have no problem. I speak about openly. So I find it very boring. And but I do pray with my wife and children every night. She like regimental is the rosary in the house, and I go to mass in Knock every night at 7. So there's the rosary before Holy Mass. So I do the rosary there. It wouldn't be my first choice prayer. My powerful prayer is the Mass.
Oh yeah,
the Holy Mass. But in those community years, we were praying 3 rosaries. So you pray the 3, the joyful, the sorrowful, and the glorious mystery every day for 5 years.
oh.
I
I really got into it when I started doing the rosary with Bishop Barron, you know,
Yeah.
on Hallow.
Yes.
That's when, before that, I would have said the same, you know, not getting the right sort of rosary. But with him and how deep he goes in and examines the mysteries, that, like, really in the last few months has transformed my mental health even, you know.
Of course.
And, like, calmness. I've had a calmness I've never had. And it's down to actually doing the rosary with Bishop Barron every day. And it's the long one. It's a long one, but it's amazing, you know.
Yeah.
And as an Italian, we love the rosary in Italy, and you know you can hear it belted everywhere, but in Italy, but I still have to receive that grace, and you know, and Sanctis is miss from my spiritual life, and I pray every day that Our Lady will touch my heart and heal the wounds of my mother, because some of the wounds are still there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So. The rosary is very powerful. I have a friend from Dublin, and he saved his life through the power of prayer of the rosary. And he says if he doesn't pray the rosary today, he might relapse.
It's because Our Lady says that it's the weapon of today.
It is.
And truth be told, anybody who I know prays it, I feel like it is the weapon of today. And I think it keeps, if you pray it together as a family, as our Lord says himself, a family that prays together stays together. But I see real power. And like you, to be honest, there was a time where I was like, oh, this is boring. But I think now that I have a personal relationship both with our Lord and Our Lady, I've got to enjoy it more because it's more conversational. I think when you look at it like that.
Yes. And it's beautiful to hear from yourself, John, and from yourself, Danielle. And I hear that every day from my wife.
Good woman.
But But look, we are married 22 years on
How did you meet her? How did you meet her and how did you get to Ireland? Because that's a big twist and turn.
I came to Ireland. So through that community that I was in, I spent 3 years in Italy. I couldn't go anywhere. So when I stopped, John and Danielle, everybody found me. Okay, so court cases after court cases, and God bless my father, bless him really. He had to pay a huge amount of money to keep me out of prison, like, you know. But I you know, and I could see the because the power of the rosary and the power of the belief of the power of the rosary. That's more different to say the power of believing on the power of the rosary. I was saved by going back to a place that could have been dangerous for me, to be in prison, meeting people that probably I knew from the past and stuff like that. So I spent 3 years, and when they gave me the passport, there was a project by a priest from Ireland. They went to Medjugorje, where we have the biggest center of this community, and he witnessed what he was there. He's from Ogman Street, so inner city Dublin. And he was dealing every day with brokenness of people through addiction. And he said, you know, it'd be great to have a place like this in Ireland. So I came to Ireland in 1999 to start that project with not a word of English. That's right, not a word of English. And at that stage, I was praying to the Lord to lead me where he wants me to go. To his will, not mine. And I was ready to become a priest as well. I wouldn't have any fear, but I never felt the call. But this woman, Neve, a redhead lady, came in my life, and she was a friend. She used to bring divine providence. So we don't take money from the state. We don't use HAC and stuff like that. So we depend on generosity of people. And if they don't bring nothing, we eat what we have. She never touched drugs. She says she likes me. And she said, "Isn't that great?" And I said, "But I mean, I'm very afraid." And she says, "What you afraid of?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know women." And she said, "Relax. You know what I mean? Relax. Let the Lord enter in your life. Let the Holy Spirit lead you." So making a long story short, we are married 22 years with that lady, 6 children after. God bless us with beautiful children. And so the power of the rosary, I can see the fruits of the rosary.
Yeah.
That I say it with, with love and no love. But the power will, when you're using your mouth to praise the Lord, to praise Our Lady, things happen. When you're in silence, nothing happens. You stew in your own stuff. But when you have the courage to say it, that you believe it or not, you are saying it. So you're actually praising. That you're fully understand what you're saying, but you're praising Our Lady. So I can see the fruits in my children. Like, with 3 boys, 3 girls. They're a blessing to us, really. You know what I mean? So.
When did you move to where you live now? Do you want to tell people?
Yeah, look, we used to live in Cullen in Slane, which is beside Slane. That's where we bought our property. I was working for a big multinational in Swords. My wife was in the airport. She was in the airlines all her life. And but I never settled. Do you know what I mean? One thing's very funny, I have to say. My brother-in-law is from Newcastle, England, So when I bought house, he's very handy and I'm handy too. So I say, will you give us a hand? Because he's a builder finish. I want to put the floor down, So we started tiling the floors in the kitchen. And there's a 6 pub in that village and only 1 DIY shop. And so, the little cross, the spacer between the tiles, we run out. We go for a pint of Guinness and we buy the crosses. So we went into the DIY shop and I say to the fella behind, a young man, he says, where is the pub with the best Guinness? And he said, shall go there? My brother-in-law never opened his mouth at that stage. He was looking at the crowd, he was looking at tools, and he came up and he said, how are you, mate? And the man and he said, you'll be all right in the pub, looking at me. I said, with an accent, with a funny accent like that, I wouldn't go in any of the pubs around here. So I just said, what do you mean? You know what I mean? So I realized where I was, the history of Ireland, the fight for their faith, the oppression from the British, you know what I mean? So there was still scar there, And even he was funny the way he said it, but he had a point, you know what I mean? So I never settled. I never enjoyed it, my home. I purchased my house. I never enjoyed it. So we came down in 2007 in Knock for the Novena. And we were staying in a local B&B called Divine Mercy. And it was a beautiful sunny day. I was reading the paper. And the lady my wife was sitting on the chair over me. And I was sitting here. And I say, would you like to live here? And she says, God, we never agree, even in the curtains or the color of the sofa or whatever. But I say, I would love to live here. And I say, I really feel a sense of peace and joy and home. Because when I came in 1999, the center is in Knock. So I call it home. And so the lady of the B&B came in and said, is there any work around here? And she said, if there is a job, it's on that paper that you're reading, the local paper. So there was a job for office administration. I applied and I got a job. And I moved after a week. I didn't even think about it. We moved. And we are there since.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Davide. The Catholic faith when you got here, that was 1999.
Yes.
Compared to now, what have you seen? What's the changes?
Oh, big changes. Yeah, definitely, John and Danielle. When I came over here, it was a completely different Ireland. I used to go to the mass on a Sunday. We used to go out of the community to partake to the local parish church. Not in Knock, one of the satellite parishes. To be helping the choir, to do the readings and stuff like that, to be a real living part of your own parish, even if we are all foreigners coming from different countries. And we were very welcome. So I remember going in, and if you arrive to church at 10 to 10, you'll be standing because the pews were full from front to back. And there'll be granny, granddad, sons and daughters and grandchildren and stuff like that. So today, my job is for the last 12 years to go and speak about the persecution of Christians around the world. And I visit churches all over the world, all over Ireland, and as well in Malta and Italy. But things are different. Not so much in the north, I have to say, but in the Republic. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, it is in the north too, though.
It's still probably,
maybe.
but I see what he
A difference,
sees,
I know
which
you
is,
said that.
I see it much stronger in the north as well. The same, because when I
Yes.
go up there to the churches, there in the attendance and the priests even that they have.
But they suffer.
Yeah,
they have.
exactly. So there is a different energy.
Yes.
So I made a film called The Black Guelph,
Okay.
which is a critique of the Catholic Church and the crimes that they've committed
Yes.
in the past.
Yes.
And a lot of Irish people have family members that went through the industrial schools or the Magdalen laundries that suffered.
Yeah.
And I suppose the organisation of the Catholic Church got ahead of itself
Yeah.
and got consumed by power in Ireland.
Yeah.
And I suppose I'm in a good position to talk about it because I at least talked about it, making a film about it, critiqued it. But really, for me, what it was about was a corruption of the human soul.
Of course.
And Danielle often says to me, you know, the closer you get to God, the more you get attacked.
Of course.
And it's still now when I'm talking about my faith online, it's the main thing I hear from people. And the masses myself and Danielle are going to, and her local priest, and I was up in Derry the weekend with Father Stephen. Father Darren is her local priest up in Belfast and Falls. Father Darren we could talk about too. Father Stephen up in Curcio, up in the Carmelite retreat up there we were for the weekend. These are amazing priests that really light the fire in your heart.
Yes.
And actually fathers, I can't get into, I can't talk about Curcio because it's a secret actually.
Yeah.
What he says there, they would actually correct him and say it's not us, it's the Holy Spirit, because they would never, you know, because you can see it by their fruits. You will know. You can see visibly in my eyes. They're two of the biggest priests that have moved me in a big way. After Sister Claire, who is directly behind you, all or nothing. But they have made such a difference in my life, and it's the power of the Holy Spirit and the conviction in them. And you know, they're not afraid to go to the nitty gritty stuff, which a lot of people would shy away from. They go to the truth. I mean, Jesus meets people in their brokenness, and that's what needs to happen more. People need to be evangelized more with the truth instead of, you know, a lot of people put these barriers up.
Look, the big change I witnessed, and when you talk about, you know, the Magdalen laundry and stuff, I self-educated, I bought books, I read them, and, you know, we're talking about human being, and we are talking about power. And probably the church in Ireland, maybe 40, 50 years ago, put the priest on the pedestal and give too much power, in the sense that that power was used incorrectly, you know, by, you know, I even hear from my father-in-law, they come from a small village in Offaly, and on the Sunday they will read out, you know, who gave and how much they gave. So, like, you know, the family, but my in-laws were publicans, so they had pubs, so they could give more. But the people that have nothing, they give what they can, but their names were read out. You know what I mean? What, you know, how embarrassing is that? Like, you know what I mean? Why you do that? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It goes to God. It doesn't matter. Is the, you know, the remember. But as well, the scandals are happening every day.
Because we need to remember as well, just to put this into context, it's spiritual warfare.
It is
and
spiritual
humans, we are humans, and you know, we're born with original sin, temptations all around. And as John said there, the closer we walk in our faith, the more we're tempted, and that can happen to priests as well. So most of the time I do say pray for them, because you need your prayers.
Danielle, it will happen more to a priest than us.
100%.
Because, you know, they are being given the gift. But at the end of the day, I always say to people, like, you know, I meet a lot of people that say to me, I don't go to church, I'm very spiritual. And say, you know, demons are spirit too. You know what I mean? You have to be careful, like, you know what I mean? Go back to the sacraments. The sacrament. I remember, for a priest that have committed those, you know, awful things, there's a number of them, okay? But there is a huge number of good men, priests, that I met, and they still today cry for what their brothers have done to the children. So everybody's been affected by the sins of some human being, and, you know, priest. The Magdalene sisters, in example, for my spiritual understanding, those poor women that were brought to the Magdalene sister, they shouldn't have been there. Those sisters were sisters. They were in convent. They were not made to wash linen for hotels and making money for the Catholic Church. But where the sin started from the family. You know, like I prayed the Lord that it will never happen to me, that my kids, my daughter, 3 daughters will grow and have happy marriage or vocation or whatever. But if my daughter come back home and say, I'm expecting a child, should I bring it? Like, it's a life. We'll deal with it. I will not be, great. You know what I mean? But I would just say, you know, you deal with it. So those nuns were surrounded by these women abandoned by their parents, and where they're seen with the sinful fruits of the Guinness, of the disco, of not the disco, wherever the balls, and sometimes were inbred, were uncles, cousins, like, you know what I mean, and they shame. Why shame? There's no shame. Today we live in a world that they say the devil is very clever, you know,
Yeah.
because he is able to make people believe that he doesn't believe. That he's not real. He's not real. And even priests don't believe, you know. Oh, priests don't believe in hell, you know. If you start to talk about the devil, say, oh, no, that's all in the past.
That's a culture that came out of the sort of 60s, isn't it? The new generation, the new age priests.
Yes.
Who stopped even believing in the supernatural.
Yes.
So there's no devil, there's no supernatural realm, there's no evil spirits.
So
I
I
mean,
said
that
to them,
defeats the
if
purpose.
you met me a few years ago, Father, I'll show you the devil.
see the
You know what I mean? I'll make you...
That's what I mean. You just need to look at the world today and you can see the fruits of the devil. I mean, there's so much divisiveness. He's ripping family apart. I mean, that's under attack today. The drug culture, making people feel worthless. It is there before your eyes. That's how he works. He makes you feel like you're not good enough. There's no hope.
It's like I say, when I was in criminality and I couldn't care, no morals, no beliefs, nothing. The devil put strings on your hands, on your brain, and you work for him, that you like it or not. Today, he's so clever. He keep creating new substances to get the young people, you know, the vape and all this carry on. Or the worst drug dealers in Ireland, you know who they are? You know, if we want to be honest, GPs.
Oh.
And you know what I mean? Okay, I'm not afraid
for me.
you're publicly here speaking. And as you say, if you go to a GP, you say you're depressed, you think it's suicide. Sure, your money fill you with Valium and stuff like that, and Xanax and stuff like that. You'll be addicted.
It's funny you brought that up this morning. I was talking to my sister-in-law, and she came over and she was just talking about nutrients that she's taking or some supplement or whatever. And the doctor just said to her randomly, "Are you depressed?" She says, "No, I'm grand. Listen, if you're depressed, we can put you on medication."
Yeah.
And she was like, "No, you're grand. No, listen." He was literally going, "This is what I can give you." I'm telling you. And she's like, "Are you serious?" Like, like they're obviously incentivized by the big pharma to push these, and they're going to get a holiday and they're going to get business.
It is a controversial one for me. I work in a doctor's 3 days a week, but I can see, I have to say, the people I work with are all good people. So
definitely.
But it is also tricky for me because I have family members who are addicted to those drugs in a real big, bad way.
Yes.
And they have no hope because
Not at all.
they don't know who to go to. No one can help them because they're saying the medication that they're on, they need to be weaned off or they can have heart attacks or this or that. It's the hardest ones to get off, and our societies are being ruined by them.
And we are all children of God, and we are all here to help each other. And, you know, the hope of this podcast for me personally, and, you know, is to say that, you know, the reality of the evil one is real. But God is much more powerful when you surrender your life. Okay, in the north, maybe people from the north find difficult to, you have to surrender. You know what I mean? And when I go up there giving my testimony, I say, lads, you have to surrender. But to God,
no surrenders.
Don't surrender, but you have to surrender. If you're an addict, you have to surrender to his power. But I just think, even in the world that we live in today, there is too much confusion. And confusion can come from the state, come back from the church, come back from your family, come back from your friends, your circle, but also it comes from you. I have to stand up for what I believe. I have to have the courage to make the sign of the cross, even if the people are thinking I'm a lunatic. I have the courage to go to daily mass because I have to keep my sobriety. Because I know I had the money, I had the drugs, had the power, had the control, I had nothing. And only when I had the courage to go to the deepest side of my life, to surrender my life to a free God that opened his arms, welcome him, and lick my wounds, I'm free. I am free. I wake up free. I go to bed free. I am free. I have nothing, materials, but I have everything. And he's the most we were thinking about banks and stuff like that. He has the biggest wallet in the world. Yeah. I've been to places. I met the Pope Francis. I welcome Pope Francis in Nog. Yeah. Like he's a gangster. Met Pope Francis. Say, welcome to Nog. This is my wife. These are my 6 children. They had time with him. I'm best friends with Visca, the visionary Medjugorje. Like, you know what I mean? I've been addressing former President McAleese in her own house with her husband and all the media. And I say to them, was great when they, we don't name people, but they know who is the family in Ireland that brought the drugs, the heroin into Ireland in the late 70s. Okay, and I just say, in fairness, they were a chancer, like I was a chancer, and the state start to provide help for the people. Okay, but like it's 2007, I said to them, you have people addicted to methadone. You're investing money in the wrong things, and I say you're giving money to an addict. You give him a free house, money every week, you give him free medication, you give free methadone, you give everything for free. That poor person is slave to the state. So they keep you shut up, they keep you mentally, and they keep talking about, because the billions that the methadone is making to keep these people drinking the methadone. I'm just saying to President McAllister, say, would you not thinking, maybe we start to close the tap a little bit? And I do know there is people 30, 40 years in methadone. And I say they will have serious issues if they have to come off. So I say, when you cut, and for the young people, don't put them in the methadone. Don't put them in the methadone. And you say, oh, if we do that, they become criminals. But they're already criminals. Yeah. And they take the methadone, and then they say, okay, my body's fine. I can go rob now for a bag. Do you know what I mean? I say, this is the mentality of an addict. It will never change. It's not the state. So the state is not caring for the addicts. And I go to Dublin, everywhere, because now you can buy a bag of coke in Knock if you wish. Drugs is everywhere in Ireland. It's so serious. GA, you name it, everywhere. Young people at school, everywhere. But the state doesn't care. The state doesn't care. And the state is not helping anyone, because the reality that we have a backlog of so many people addicted to serious drugs, they need medical attention. So they build a children's hospital. Okay, fair enough, we need to help the children. But we have an addiction issue going on for the last 30 years. No one has thought to ask money to the EU to build a hospital. And we can give our brothers and sisters that live on the corner of the street an opportunity to get themselves clean. An opportunity. And if they get clean, they might get back to job. Because the more you keep them like that, then, they need St. James Hospital because their liver is gone, medical issues, So it's a wheel creating problems and problems. Nobody cares.
Do you know in 1979 when Pope John Paul II came to the Phoenix Park in Dublin was the day that the first heroin shipment came to Ireland?
Maybe.
It was, yeah.
They maybe used that opportunity.
No, they did, of course, because 1 million people were there.
Yeah.
So that place was locked down, and it was, the ports were easy to get to.
Yeah.
Actually, it's just funny, isn't it, that, when
I didn't know that, but it makes sense.
We were, and people were going there to Pope John Paul in sort of peak Catholicism in Ireland, and then right around the corner, this demonic darkness is about to descend to Ireland.
And John, one thing, and Danielle, I think we should really, I want to advocate this. It's not about religion.
Yeah.
Religion, you have to be intelligent to understand religion. You know what I mean? It's about faith.
I keep saying that.
Yeah.
I say to John, even us coming on here, I was like, but we don't even have a degree in theology. I mean, I don't know what we're talking about, but it's from the heart.
Yes.
It's something that you feel.
Yes.
And because you feel this, you want other people to feel it too. My conversion came big with Sister Claire, who's behind you. And some of the things that you were saying were resonating because she too would have said, the surrender and that joy. When we look at nuns and who we expect a nun to look like, we don't expect to see Sister Claire, that warm, inviting smile, warm, inviting soul. And, can you cry?
Tell us a bit about Sister Claire.
I met her.
You met her, and will you just... let's presume the audience doesn't know who she is. So tell us a bit about her and your experience with Sister Claire.
I met her out of the blue. She came to Knock, her first visit when she was already a sister. Don't know anything about her. Nothing. And she was giving a talk in Knock with another sister from Ireland, and she was already with a sister in Spain. And she looked beautiful. And I was very intrigued why this young girl, so beautiful, became a nun. So I went to listen to her story. And then we had an opportunity to have a cup of tea and a chat. And that's the same nun that died in Ecuador. And my wife, myself, and my kids are part of Home of the Mother, like in the lay society, So, and there was another nun, Sister Ruth Maria from Cabra, and she was even more powerful. And she's also in heaven with Sister Claire.
Is she from Dublin?
Yes.
Yeah, Because Megan and Shauna, who is Sister Claire's
Yeah.
sisters, have talked about Sister Ruth and
Yes.
said she's powerful too.
Yes. So at the end of the day, that's the beauty of example for the young women and the young people in Ireland. I see
Because she was an actor who
Yeah.
said no to fame and,
Yeah.
and chose
the
to
courage.
serve God,
Yeah,
But, you know,
or was called.
yes, it's a call.
it's a call.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
call.
she went to Ibiza thinking that she was going on a holiday, wasn't she?
No, she went to Spain
Yeah.
thinking she was going to Ibiza. That's what she always says,
Ah.
but it was
Yeah.
a pilgrimage.
That's right.
So she went out there thinking she was going to Ibiza,
Yeah.
and in the beginning, you know, she was having none of
Yeah.
it, and she was just being herself. But she had a
And you know
deep
why
conversion.
I became so intrigued by the home of the mother where Sister Claire
Yeah.
was a nun with. There's no gray area. It's black and white.
Yeah.
And they're not here to talk about the weather. So even when I speak with the priest, they're not here to talk about the weather. They're here to save souls.
Yeah.
And our job
it.
is really to save our souls. My job, my first priority is to bring myself to heaven, my wife and the 6 children, and then anybody that comes to on my journey. And you know, sometimes you speak, or sometimes you just smile, and sometimes you pray. Sometimes your eyes see things, and like you know what I mean, and you pray for it. You know, like there is so much power on. There's so much happiness in heaven when a contrite heart turns to God, and when you know that you have received that gift of I call it maybe 1,000 chance, but it's the second chance in life. You don't let this opportunity escape from you.
Mhm.
So anywhere I go, I never afraid to say where I came from and where I am today. And Jesus is always on my lips. And I don't care if I am accepted or not. And I will live and I'll say, God bless you.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty part of standing up for our faith. And I think we skipped a generation,
Yeah.
but I am hopeful that the new generation, they see my children and children that are here in Ireland, they are very smart and they are very innocent in a way that they are searching. And we need to give them life story to shock them, because
Yeah.
there is a reality that if you make wrong choices, there is consequences. It's not that is everything going to be okay, hunky-dory. There's consequences. And we read it in the paper. If you buy it on the world, you read it, you know what I mean? If you read papers about the city, about criminality, about drugs, about wrong choices in life, new age, I met them all. Like, you know what I mean? So there is consequences of what you're embarking with. I met people that goes to counselors and psychotherapists. I call them the rapist.
Well,
yeah.
that's a thing that, well, even therapists are told that. They told that is the weird thing that is going on. You spell
Yes.
it and it's the rapist. And
Do you know who actually comes to mind? Marino Restrepo. He says it keeps you in a process that you
Incorrect.
don't get out.
You don't finish.
You don't
And
finish.
you pay maybe 80 quid to speak for half an hour about whatever is going on in your life, but you don't have a solution. He doesn't give you a solution. He tell you have the solution inside you. And when you can go to a confession box, it's for free, and you let it all out, and the mercy of God through his precious blood coming to you and rejuvenate you and give you the freedom, but you have to believe that you have been forgiven. At the beginning, it was very difficult for me.
I think us all can agree that everything in this life, you know, is passing, and the
Oh, yeah.
only thing that remains is God.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's why we're here, to try and reiterate that back, and that there is true happiness and hope
Yes.
when you come to this realization. So just kind of to wrap things up, in terms of what message would you give to somebody today who is struggling, feels like there is no hope, and who are lost?
Yeah, look, the message is like, you know, sometimes there is no hope when you are so deep in the darkness, because you cannot see the light out, you know. But I just say, like, I'm still standing, and I feel very privileged for that. But this is me. It doesn't happen to anyone. You know what I mean? As I say at the beginning, I went to funerals of my friends. I buried them. They have no other second chance. I don't know if they are in the eternal life or they are in another place, but I pray for the holy souls and I pray for them every day. But the young people that are struggling today in Ireland, I just say, you're struggling because you want to struggle. And you're struggling because you're not speaking to the right people. You're struggling because you're not speaking at all. You're not speaking about the truth of what's going on with your life. And when you have the courage to speak what's going on in your life, you have to find at least 1 or 2 or 3 good friends in your life that you have the courage to say it as it is. And, they might direct you somewhere. And look, the Lord is eternal. He's always there waiting for everyone. He waited for me, 12, 15 years? And through the prayer of my granny, I am a saved man today. But it's all or nothing. We can't live the two lives, unfortunately. I can't do, you know what I mean? I gave example, like, sometimes the devil come and says to me, like I was making a clear example. Like we were struggling financially to buy a house at the beginning, and we were only married, 6 months. And I said to my wife, I might go home for a week. And, I said to Neve, I might go home for a week. Come back with the money for the house. I'll buy it. No mortgage, nothing. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And she says to me, that's not be blessed money. That's not the way to start
It's not start.
our journey. Like, but that's the
That was
way
the
a
devil.
man and a gangster. So for me, we are a battle. We are a war. And we know that we lose battles. But the war has been won by his life in the cross. And one thing I have to say, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go into a church. Don't be afraid to go in and light a candle. Start very small. Say whatever prayer you remember when you were a child. Just say a little prayer. But as well, if you are sitting on the side of the street, no one is going to pick you up. No one is going to pick you up. No one has time for you. Because the world is all living on the next paycheck. How much money I have for this weekend? Can I make a holiday this year? How much is the mortgage? You know what I mean? Will I buy a new car? That's where the world is going. They have no time for God. They have no time to receive the graces. So we are married 22 years. We had good times, bad times. And I tell you, when you are close to God, as you say, Danielle, the devil come and he'll come. Because I can't say what or what, because, to protect. But we had in 2016 an experience where the full gangster came out and took me 6 years to forgive that person. 6 years. And don't put a bullet in his head. Because I told him, I put a bullet in your head, like it is. And if it was a priest, or if it was anybody, and I would say, if anybody touched my children, put the bullets in their head. No problem.
Come here. Just the one last thing.
Yeah.
How we met.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because the audience might want to hear that. So something was going on in my family that I couldn't help. And I was on this path of faith and knew that anything that I was being dragged into might have been negative, and it just wasn't for me. So something told me, go to knock. So I went to knock. I left at 5:30 in the evening to go to knock. Maybe 3.5 hours drive from where I am. Got down there and got into the mass before it ended. And I was waiting to receive the Holy Eucharist, and I saw a man get down on his knees. And something told me, get down on your knees to receive the Eucharist, which I never did before. And then another voice came into my head, no, don't be subservient to the priest, right? So this back and forward was going as I was lining up, right? This never happened to me before, right? And I was going, I'm losing my mind, right? So anyway, in the last second, I just went with the positive voice. Yeah, just do it anyway and let's see what happens, right? So I got down, received the Eucharist, amen. Got up, and the second I got up on my feet, it came to me why I got down on my knees, which is I'm receiving the body of Christ, okay? And it just hit me, emotionally as well hit me. And I walked outside, and I saw you, and me and you got chatting. I said, I know you.
Yes.
You called me Patrick.
I got you. Yeah, from 11 yeah.
And let's just say what was going on at the time would have been very relative to the life you lived.
Yeah.
So no coincidences, only God incidents.
Yeah.
And we talked for hours.
Yes, we did.
And by the end of it all, I got news that there was peace and that there was a little mini miracle. That's a fact.
The power of prayer.
And we talked about, actually, one of the things was, again, before we let you go, it is an important subject to touch on.
Yeah.
Christian persecution.
Indeed. And that's all the connection. Until maybe 2.5 years ago, I used to receive in hand, okay? And then a priest spoke to me from another mother, and he said, you're a warrior for Christ. If you meet the king and you were living in England, you kneel for him to bless you. So you don't meet in a priest, you meet in him, the king. So you're a warrior, you kneel. And also another things I say, so I kneel to receive Holy Communion,
Yeah.
but not for the
Me
priest,
too.
but not for being show,
No.
It's my personal relationship with Jesus. And I don't see, when I go to Mass, I'm able to completely detach from everyone around me. It's just me and him. And I talk to him during the Mass, or before the Mass, or after in Thanksgiving, for all the things he sent me during the day, good and bad. But that evening, because I go to Mass every day, that evening I went to receive Holy Communion, and then I walked back to my pew. And honestly, I said, that's your man from Love and Hate. And, there was joy. It wasn't negative, it was joy. And I just say, gosh, that's beautiful. He's a Mass. So I knelt down. This is my Thanksgiving. I left. John came out, and I call him Paddy. I say, Patrick, how are you? And he said, do I know you? And I said, I hope no, but I said, I know you from Love and Hate. And I said, but it was the connection is Love and Hate, because I love, it's very hard to not appreciate criminality. It's very strange area, like, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't dwell too much about it, but I still love those kind of, especially The Godfather and all, the Gomorrah, or, the Godfellas, Goodfellas. But I love that kind of movie because I was part of it. And it give you those memories that thank God you're not anymore. But when I actually approached John to shake his hands, because he put a post in Instagram that I follow John in Instagram, and he spoke about the persecution of Christians. And that's an area that is very close to my heart. And when we're talking about persecution of Christians, there is brothers and sisters of us right now, they're losing their life because our faith. And
It's happening in the Congo, in Syria, in Nigeria now.
Nigeria is,
Nigeria has
200 people were murdered last Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, and like the mass attendance is through the roof.
Oh, yeah, through the roof.
90%, over 90%, are risking their lives to go to mass. And then it's so sad in Ireland, you walk into a church and there's nobody.
There's no one there.
Like it's life and death over there.
Yeah.
They receive the Eucharist, it's life and death.
375 million Christians are persecuted. Is there a religion that is more persecuted around the world?
And it's crazy because unless you go and seek these things out yourself, you never know that it's even happening.
The media are not talking about, because it's no business for the media to cover about. It's about talking about God, and we know the media don't want to talk about.
It's the most
God.
discriminated against religion.
It is the most discriminated religion. Yes, it is. And like at the end of the day, we need to stand up for our faith and reclaim the faith. Podcast is something new, something that was needed, and I think you will reach many places. The Lord will reach so many hearts and souls through this podcast. And I'm just saying, I'm no specialist, so whatever I say here today is for the gift of praising God and saying the other man is real, exists. Be careful what you're engaging with. But also, I'm just saying, the persecution of Christian is my it's very close to my heart, because I witness what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Israel, what's happening in Yemen, in Pakistan, in China, North Korea, Africa, 3/4 of Africa, through famine, hunger. But Christianity is hatred. And then we have the other version of Christianity over here in Ireland, where we open the door, we say, everybody's welcome, come in to us, we'll help you, no problem. And but I would just say, how stupid are we? We say to these people, come in, you're welcome. And we are changing our attitude to make them feel happy in our country. And I'm not racist, I don't care. I'm a Christian, so I will welcome everyone in this country. But I hope that I am a Christian, that I will be welcome in Syria, Iraq, in Pakistan. It's a danger to your life. You're in prison. And then there is also other things I like to talk about, because it's a Catholic podcast, and I have an opportunity. We lost the plot. The politicians have no clue whatsoever what's going on.
They're so out of touch.
They're so out of touch. Yeah. Everybody say they're good men. I do believe they are good men. They're good family men. But there's
Micheál Martin. Did you hear what he said recently, that the 1916 Rising was an internationalist movement?
Yeah.
It was about Irish independence against the British Empire.
Yes.
For Irish independence. That to me is peak insanity now. We're going to peak insanity.
It is insanity, and it is like, I work, I pay my taxes, and I am so sad sometimes to see how my taxes are used to, that I wish my taxes are used to help people that need, like addict, homeless, Irish people.
The lack of humanity that is creeping in here, as a result, again, if people were to go back to their faith, again, reclaiming the faith is what we're...
But that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
You have to reclaim it. You have to start somewhere. And, speaking about these topics, they might bring you into hot waters and stuff like that. People will hate you, what you say. But Jesus was put in a cross.
Absolutely.
As I
nailed in the
said
cross.
at the Sister Clare retreat, I'd rather stand with God than stand with the world. If that means standing alone, so be it.
A lot of people will say, and because you move in different way, you know people from different backgrounds, they say, I think when I die, just the light goes off and it's going off. And I used to say, but I believe there is an eternal life, because we have the saints, we have the miracles, we have people that come back and tell us, the dead coming back. But we had Lazarus, he was resurrected. I was resurrected.
Yeah.
I was dead. I was resurrected. I claim that. It's mine. Thank you, Jesus, for coming in my darkness and take me out of it, bring me back and change my life to have respect, because I respect everyone. But I find that if you're a Catholic, you're not respected. And you know what I mean? And that's because we are bigotry, because the scandals, because this, because that. But, it's true. But we own it. You know what I mean? Let's move, turn the page. And we keep forgetting that the Catholic Church is the only organization at the time that opened their arms, looking nothing from my parents to pay a fee to save my life. And the Catholic Church has been founded by Jesus, and who was the first founder? Peter. And he denied Jesus 3 times. So, you know what I mean? So the Catholic Church has fed the poor, buried the dead, helped the sick, educated the people that don't need. So the Catholic Church is still doing that for what? 25 years?
Yeah.
And people take that for granted. But you say the Catholic Church has done this and done that. But you look, the Catholic Church never stop. Never stop. Because we believe that, even people have approached me because I speak about Gaza. You say, why are you helping the people in Gaza? You say, because it's the, humanitarian. But they're not our faith. They're not Catholic.
Doesn't matter.
And I say, but we're not doing it because they are Catholic. We are doing it because we are Catholic.
And what did Jesus teach us? His
No.
church is universal. Everybody's
Indeed.
welcome. We're all brothers and sisters, and we're there to help one another, not to divide. And that's what we need to remember. So my heart bleeds for the people in Gaza and for persecuted
Our charity
Christians.
aid to the
And
church in need spend €500 a day in Gaza. €500 we send in money a day to feed 3,000 people. And as I said, and this is very strong, we are not doing because they are Catholic. We are doing it because we are claiming their faith. We are Catholic.
Can I just
and we
make a
need to
point
do it.
on that, David? Me and her have been talking about this, and because some people will see some of your views, right, and you might go right wing, this, that, and the other.
Yeah, yeah.
And then all of a sudden but also you're for helping the poor and you're
Yeah.
helping for addicts, whatever.
Yeah.
That's left wing. And then there's the Gaza thing, that's left
Yeah.
wing. So me and her have been talking more and more about this. When you actually try your best to live
Yeah.
a life of faith
Yeah.
as a Catholic and following Jesus, you actually shouldn't be and can't be defined by a political left
That's
or
right.
right.
never.
Correct.
Jesus can't be defined
No.
politically. And I
No.
think, you get the extreme of that, the evangelicals maybe in
Yeah,
America.
yeah.
And they don't follow Christ. They embrace the hate. And then there's other groups that do it the opposite side and leave back behind so much of the tradition and teachings
Yeah.
of Jesus. And they're not either. I think if you actually try to follow it, you're not thinking politically, actually.
No,
That's
it
the
needs to
thing.
be
No.
left out. Politics is
Politics,
out. There's
yeah.
no room for it. If
Politics
we-
has to be out,
I always
and
say
politics has to
sorry.
be out of your heart, because look, I think there is a new springs of. I see a couple of one, especially a good guy there in the door speaking quite openly. He's from the West, no name, but he's very powerful, and I know him growing up. He's a good Catholic, and he's trying his best, But I just think we don't need to take side. And Jesus is one side, and Jesus, my father. Okay, maybe this. So coming back to John and meeting us, I think we are all interconnected one way or another through our faith, and Jesus will send messenger or angels or interceders for your prayer, and you don't even know why you're there, but there is a reason why you're there. You might find out later. And when you had the experience at the mass that night of your mother coming
Yeah.
to you, like that was powerful even for my children to hear it. Like, that
Yeah.
was very powerful. But I actually do, I lost my line of thoughts now. Good Lord. Help me. What I was saying.
When you met John.
I was,
The political left and right and
like, you know what I mean? I think I lost the line of thought, so you can edit this and cancel it.
That's
okay.
you know what though? Anyway,
It was
let me say this: we could do 2 more hours, and I'd love to have you back, actually, Davide, because there's so much we can talk about, and there's so much more we could talk about. Because I feel like it's only getting started, actually. But we'd love to have you back.
go ahead,
Yeah.
get some other guests, and then we can.
But you ever see the Joe Rogan show? He has regular guests like Joey Diaz. You can be our Joey
You'd be
Diaz.
ours.
And every so often I come in, I refresh, and we'll go back and go forward. But I honestly, from the deep of my heart, from the behalf of my Neve, that she heard your testimony. She actually doesn't know personally you, but she was following you because she was very touched by your conversion. She met you, John.
Yeah,
she said,
she's lovely.
I never met any sound fella like that chap. And so you see, there is no. In my home in Knock, and you're most welcome anytime you come around the West. Come in for dinner. We have priests, we have sisters, we have addicts, we have anyone coming to our home, and the door is always open. We have people with different belief, people that don't believe, they come. And, because the door has to be always open. So when I was welcome into the Catholic Church, when I was at the deepest of the deepest, I didn't thought twice. And I was welcomed by the Catholic Church without judgment. They never asked me who I was, what I done, and, who my connection were. But they say, would you like to meet someone that we will be your best friends for life? And we have the courage, and the young people have the courage. Life is not easy. To embrace the cross, to kiss the cross, and to be completely covered by the blood that is still flowing from the cross through our brothers and sisters, martyrs all over the world for our faith.
That's a beautiful way.
Yep.
Beautiful way to end the podcast, Davide.
And I bless you, and I please God that will send you many more messengers, that many people will have the courage to come and spread the good news of the gospel, because the young people, and also the elderly, need to hear the true story of conversion, of people that have left God and come back and believe on the real presence of God in this life, and the real presence of the other guy that is destroying family, society, humanity. And we need to fight it. So we are at war. Let's fight it.
That's it. Put on the armor. Thank
There
you
you go.
so much, Davide.
Thank you.
It's been lovely to have you.
Thank you.
God bless you, man.
God bless you all.